Hey everyone, it's Jen with Spirited Saturdays, and this week we're talking about overexercise and the complications that come from overexercising when you have an eating disorder. So I think that often people with eating disorders in general tend to feel, there's a tendency to feel some of the following things: the need to compensate, the need to obsess, the drive for perfection, the rationale that nothing is good enough. And if you have a tendency to overexercise, then this can all come together to create a problem with that. These can all kind of form these set the stage, and then overexercising is the way that you might play it out. So also, if you're on the line between healthy exercise and overexercise, kind of like, whether or not you have an eating disorder, but maybe you're vulnerable to developing one, and you have a tendency to go to extremes, this could also result in a problem with overexercise. It's hard to find a balance in anything when your eating disorder is making the decisions. So it's hard to trust when to know that exercise is okay and when it's not. And so often people continue down that path to overexercise if they're vulnerable. You might know that it isn't good for you. It might start to seem obvious that it isn't good for you. You might experience physical symptoms of overexercise, physical effects of it. But just as restricting or purging or any other eating disorder behavior, by the time that happens and you actually start to feel the effects of it, you're too involved to let it stop. So, or to let that stop you from continuing. After all, you didn't get into it for the right reasons necessarily, so it won't let you go that easy just because you notice a physical effect. You might also notice a psychological effect, worsening depression, worsening anxiety, just building up of things that were already wrong. But again, you might be too far into the compulsion to exercise to either link that psychological effect back to the exercise. You might be like really cut off from that, or pay attention to it or let it affect your decision to go on or not go on exercising. Eating disorders inherently have no logical rationale. So if you notice a physical or psychological effect, the eating disorder mentality will use that to its advantage in some way. And I'm sure if you struggle with this, think about how your eating disorder is justifying and perpetuating the behavior. Think about why it might be that the more addicted to exercise you get, the more you want it. Because that can't possibly be rational. Addiction is a drug. It lets off chemicals that make you want it more and more, and in increasing amounts. That you need increasing amounts to achieve the same high. But that's the drug, not you. So here's one way of thinking of it in general. I like to think of things in terms of dreaming sometimes. I'm just a huge dreaming fan. But when you talk about things like lucid dreams, and you realize in the middle of it that you're dreaming, it's like having a lucid dream, and I, for example, I've been in a dream and I've realized that I was dreaming. Like, I've thought, this doesn't make sense. What's going on does not make sense right now. I think I might be dreaming, because logically this just doesn't come together. And then it's like, wait a minute, yeah, I am dreaming. Yeah, and then it's just this like huge revelation. It's like, oh my God, I'm dreaming. This is so weird. And then it just turns around on itself completely. But then sometimes I have a dream, and in the middle of it, I start to question my reality, and I think, like, I'm not sure if this makes sense, and I ask myself, like, am I dreaming? But then I conclude that I'm not dreaming, so I stay in that world. I had a chance to get out, or to change my perspective, or to shift, and I don't. I stay in, kind of get sucked back in. Just sort of a metaphor, but questioning reality is a routine part of eating disorders. And, it just is a matter of whether you're, questioning your reality from your healthy perspective or going on to question reality from your eating disorders perspective. But it's harder and harder to get a grasp on what's really going on, what's real. But we need to continue to question it. We need to continue to question reality and question who is really calling the shots. The reality is that it's okay not to exercise. If this is a problem for you, one way of determining the severity of it and to start to think about making it better is, well, realizing, first of all, it's okay not to exercise, but then going on and thinking about how that makes you feel. Think about how you feel when I say it's okay not to exercise. What happens? How do you feel? Do you feel anxious, guilty, sad, a sense of loss, fear? Taking note of how you feel when presented with the possibility of not exercising can be very telling. How would you feel if you couldn't exercise? Like if you got an injury that literally prevented you from exercising. Have you gotten an injury from exercising? That's another sign. And if so, have you tried to exercise anyway? And if you haven't gotten an injury, how does it make you feel knowing that some injury could happen if you exercise too much? An injury that would make it harder for you to exercise. And if you have gotten one, how did you feel? So did you feel disappointed that you couldn't exercise? Did you feel like it was a wake-up call? So take note of how you feel in the absence of the behavior or at the suggestion of the behavior's absence. This can all be very telling of whether or not you have a problem and how severe the problem is. Then think about ways to start overcoming it. This is not easy, but it's not easy to give up an addiction, especially when that addiction is so intertwined with other behaviors, is so psychologically rooted, is not based on exercise alone, but on the concepts of compensation, anxiety, control, etc., that your eating disorder is set to replace with something else in order to fill that need. So the idea is to clump all of these things into the same category. Whether you're coming off of exercise, purging, laxatives, restricting, binging, these all serve a very similar purpose. And the goal is to deal with the source of the problem before symptom substitution kicks in. And it kicks in automatically, like a reflex. It can even kick in from one problem to another. For example, when I stopped self-injuring, I developed my eating disorder. I had dealt with some of the issues from the self-injuring, but clearly was not ready to give up self-destructiveness and whatever that meant for me. Something that has helped me is dialectical behavioral therapy, or DBT. So I'll post some links below connecting you with that. But it helped me quit the self-injury, and it has helped me in the eating disorder, combined with figuring out the issues and working through that. It's important to use it alongside of expressive therapy or talk therapy, that kind of thing. Or any kind of creative therapy. But some of the tools from DBT, or dialectical behavioral therapy, are, well, actually, there are modules. There are 4 modules, but I'll just talk about 2 of them right now. There's emotion regulation and distress tolerance. And emotion regulation and mindfulness. I'll just talk about that too. Mindfulness, emotion regulation, and distress tolerance. Mindfulness is centering, bringing yourself back to the present, breathing, meditating, visualizing, etc. Emotion regulation is building a regularly healthy lifestyle over time, working it into your life, getting used to it, and just practicing a healthy lifestyle. And distress tolerance is dealing with the stress as it arises, as it comes up for you, dealing with a crisis and that kind of thing. The idea is that if emotion regulation is going well, if you're regularly practicing healthy lifestyle, then the distress won't be as hard to come down from, because you won't be as vulnerable to an out-of-control emotion or an out-of-control need or urge. And so these tools can help you stop over-exercising. I think emotion regulation is key in that you need to establish balance in your life, even if it means giving up exercising for a time and rebuilding it into your life for a totally healthy, different reason, for your own reasons, not your eating disordered reasons, And sometimes you need a break from it so you can see that more clearly, to get a more accurate perspective on who is calling the shots. So once you step away from it, treat yourself well. When you step away from it and treat yourself well and take care of your physical and psychological needs, then you can get a better idea of how exercise will fit into your healthy life and be enjoyable for you. Distress tolerance helps you find ways to deal with emotions without going to the unhealthy behavior as they arise. So one of the tools in distress tolerance is self-soothing. And you know, that's helped me a lot. What's helped me when I've had a feeling that I felt I couldn't tolerate, which might come up in the absence of exercising. You might have feelings, for example, the thought might be I want to exercise, but the feeling might be something else. It might be anxiety, something else. So change the thought. What are you anxious about? What do you want? What do you need? But don't let yourself say exercise, because that's not it. So back to that, I think that was a tangent. But what's helped me personally is, for example, self-soothing is like tactile things. I like to rub lotion on my hands or put lip gloss on and kind of feel that sensation. I just said that before the video. A form of moving that has nothing to do with burning calories or anything like that, you know, just stretching, or extremely gentle yoga, but literally gentle, like corpse pose yoga. And that kind of crosses over into mindfulness techniques as well, so I'll give that link. Journaling might help. Writing a letter to your eating disorder might help, because what's going on is that your eating disorder is keeping you in chains. Exercising isn't moving. It's not you moving. It's the chains pulling you around and holding you up and swinging you all about and pushing you forward and pulling you back with mighty force. The goal is to break free of the chain that holds you. Exercising is keeping you in place. When you break free of that, you're free of the self-sabotage, you're free of the need to be restrained by the chains. So write a letter to your eating disorder, exercising your free will, exercising your right to speak up for yourself, to reclaim your power, your own power, to define your own limits, to create your own boundaries and barriers, but not give in to the ones that it imposes on you. Exercise should not come with strings attached, just as eating should not come with strings attached. If you have a problem, please try and recognize it and begin to work on it, on however that helps you best, on whatever helps you best. If you're seeing a therapist and they recommend setting small goals, then that might work for you. If you're in a really urgent state, which in the eating disorder you might not be able to recognize how much your health has already been compromised, but you might need to give it up completely for a time, both for that perspective, that space, and for the purpose of taking care of your body. So, and your mind, of course. So please take care of yourself and try and, you know, take care of this problem if it is coming up for you. See it in the scope of the eating disorder as a whole, not just as an isolated thing. And take care of yourself, and see you next week. Bye-bye.